100 instrument panel, and the cabin altitude pressure switch is mounted on a panel on the aft side of the forward pressure bulkhead, and you have to get it out either from underneath of the instrument panel or remove a couple of these gauges so you can get to the screws that are on that panel, and we'll get you a shot of that from underneath right now. Okay, the cabin altitude pressure switch is located right here on the end of my pointer rod. Hopefully you can see that switch right here. And it looks like we'll have to get that out through the front of the instrument panel. This is the RMI. We're going to remove that. And then we have the radar altimeter. We're going to remove these two instruments here, and we should have access to the cabin altitude pressure switch mounted on that panel back there. So let's get these out and we'll take a look, see what we got. Okay, I have my long screwdriver on the screw that retains the cabin altitude pressure switch on the bulkhead. This screwdriver is about 2 foot long, and it's one of the best tools that I have in the shop, and I'm turning the screw now. And here's a shot of that screwdriver. This is how far I'm reaching from the instrument panel to the aft side of the pressure bulkhead. So we'll get that out in a minute. Okay, I'm on the retaining screw for the switch. You can see I'm turning that counterclockwise. I have some sticky material on the screw so it won't fall down into the floor and into the belly of the airplane. So we'll turn that off right there, and then I'll jump on my back and rotate it out and get that switch out. Okay, that screw fought me for all it was worth, but I won as usual. And here is the cabin altitude pressure switch right here. This is what it looks like. You can see the two leads coming into the pressure switch. Here's the little sticky material that I have when I reinstall it. Two leads coming out. So to get this switch out, I had to remove the pilot seat, the bookcase and back of the pilot seat, two instruments out of the instrument panel, and then dig this pressure switch out of the panel that holds that at the aft side of the forward pressure bulkhead. So anyway, we'll get it set up for the electrical circuit, set it up on our pitot static tester in our vacuum chamber, and we'll do that next. Continuing on with the test of the cabin altitude 10,500 foot pressure switch. I have the pressure switch set up on the bench. I have an electrical side set up, and then I have a vacuum side set up for the test. Now this is method 3 out of the maintenance manual that allows you to construct a vacuum chamber that I've already talked about. And the way the electrical side works is I have a power supply set up on almost 24 volts, and that'll send the voltage out through the contacts of the switch that we have in the vacuum chamber. When we get to 10,000 feet, those contacts will close, send a voltage down to my test light, and then after that happens, the voltage will find a ground through the power supply. On the vacuum side, or on the static side, what I have is I have my static system test box, And this has a calibrated altimeter. I have to do that once a year for my repair station to test automatic altitude reporting systems. So I have a calibrated altimeter, and all we'll do is we'll put a vacuum into our chamber. We'll pull it down to 10,000 feet, and the spec on that, right out of the maintenance manual, is 10,500 feet plus 0 minus 500. So say that again, that's 10,500 feet plus 0 minus 500 feet. So that means that we want to see this test light come on between 10,000 and 10,500 feet. So what we'll do is we'll start the vacuum. We'll get our airplane cabin coming up in pressure, and then we'll cut away, and we'll come back when once we get close to 10,000 feet. So there we go. We'll get a good vacuum going here. I have a vertical speed indicator. It goes to 6,000 feet a minute. So you can tell that our airplane cabin, represented by our vacuum chamber, is climbing pretty fast. So we won't show all that. We'll get back with you when we get up to about 9,000 feet. Okay, you can see we're coming up on 9,000 feet, getting close to our target altitude between 10,000 and 10,500 feet. So what I'll do is I'll slow the climb rate down to about 1,500 feet a minute. And we'll see at what altitude the test light is going to come on, and that represents closing of the contacts in the vacuum chamber. So let's see what happens here. Test light came on about 10,350 feet or so, so that's good. We'll go ahead and stop our climb. We'll bring it down. Now the other specification out of the maintenance manual is that the contacts should open before 9,000 feet. So you can see right now our cabin is descending at 1,500 feet a minute, and we want this light off before we hit 9,000 feet. So that's what we're looking for. So let's see at what altitude. You can see the light flicker there. The contacts are sort of opening and closing. It looks like this one's going to be okay, and that goes off at about 9,500 feet. Okay, so our altitude pressure switch meets the specs described by the maintenance manual. So I've got a good running system here, a good switch. Now I get to put it back in the airplane, which is going to be a lot of fun.